What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another attachment breakdown for Modern Warfare. In this one, we're going to be covering all of the laser sights and exactly what they do to the various guns in this game, because they don't actually behave the same for all of the weapon class types. So let's not mess around, let's just hop right into it and start it off with the 1 milliwatt laser. With this one, we can use it on assault rifles, SMGs, LMGs, pistols, and shotguns, although it does behave completely different for shotguns, and we'll look at that in just a second. But keep in mind, the 1 milliwatt laser can't be used on sniper rifles or marksman rifles. So with this, the description says that you gain hipfire accuracy, and there are no cons to this. Now, I did the testing on this and measured the diameter of the hipfire spread, and for assault rifles and SMGs, the 1 milliwatt laser will reduce your hipfire spread diameter by 15%, which is a pretty small reduction, but it is noticeable. As for LMGs and pistols, you actually get a little bit more of a reduction to your hipfire spread with this laser. You get a 20% reduction to the diameter. So overall, for the regular guns at least, this is actually a really nice attachment, especially if you just happen to have that extra attachment slot available and you don't know what to use. This is a great choice because there are literally no downsides to this. The enemies can't see that red laser that's only visible to you, and you get a bit of an improvement to your hipfire spread. As for shotguns though, the 1 milliwatt laser does something completely different. It has no impact on your hipfire spread, but instead it slightly improves your sprint out time, and based on my testing, your sprint out speed will be roughly 15% faster when using the 1 milliwatt laser. Keep in mind throughout this video, when I'm doing sprint out and aim down sight testing, it is all going to be approximate values, just because with hand testing at 60 FPS, there are definitely some limitations there when measuring such small values in the first place. But based on my testing, you sprint out about 15% faster with the shotguns, which is a nice little boost to your sprint out time, and sprint out is very important when it comes to using shotguns. But that covers it for the 1 milliwatt laser. That one's pretty straightforward, and it's nice because there's no downsides on it. Now let's move on to the next one. This is the 5 milliwatt laser. And with this one, you get improved hipfire accuracy as well as improved sprint out time for all of the guns that you can use this on. However, this one does have a downside to it, and this is that laser is visible to enemy players. So they might see that laser before you come around a corner, and they have plenty of time to prepare for you. I've gotten tons and tons of kills in this game just because I know an enemy's coming because I can see their laser before I can actually see them. So it is something you have to be aware of while using this. But having said that, a lot of people are confused about the laser behavior with the 5 milliwatt laser. The way it works is your laser is always visible unless you are sprinting or if you're aiming down sight. As soon as you perform one of those actions, the laser actually completely turns off. Initially, I thought when you're sprinting, the gun just turns to the side and therefore the laser isn't visible in front of you. But when I took a closer look, it turns out the laser actually completely turns off as soon as you engage sprinting. Same thing applies when you're aiming down sight. So if you are using the 5 milliwatt laser and you're in a situation where you're worried the enemy might be seeing your laser, you can always just aim down sight or start sprinting. Now that I know this, I'm actually a lot more inclined to start using the 5 milliwatt laser more often because it does have some great upsides that we'll look at in a second, and you can actually control when your laser is visible to an extent. But let's hop into the upsides of this. The first upside is that improved hipfire accuracy, and you actually get a bigger boost with the 5 milliwatt than you do with the 1 milliwatt in this area. For assault rifles and SMGs, you get a 25% reduction to the diameter of your hip spread, which is quite solid, and with LMGs and pistols, you get a 30% reduction, which is very noticeable. As for shotguns, you also get a very slight reduction to your hipfire spread at 12%, which is hardly even noticeable, but it's also something that they have to be careful with balancing when it comes to shotguns, because having a super tight hipfire spread can become overpowered pretty quickly. So that's the first upside with this laser, and like I said, this is a much better improvement to your hipfire spread than with the 1 milliwatt laser. Now let's look at the second pro, and this is an improvement to your sprint out time. It turns out for assault rifles, SMGs, LMGs, and pistols, we get a roughly 10 to 20% increase to our sprint out speed. Again, I can't be pinpoint accurate with this testing since it is just tested at 60 FPS. That's the best I can do with my console. But just know, with the regular guns, it's roughly 10 to 20%. However, with shotguns, we get an even bigger boost to our sprint out speed. With these, this laser allows you to sprint out about 35% faster, which is very noticeable and very helpful on shotguns. So overall, the 5 milliwatt laser absolutely has some good power to it, But you always have to be aware about that laser interaction and where your laser is pointing and when it's turned on and visible to enemy players. As a result, I do use this laser pretty sparingly, and I basically only put it on classes where I'm going to be hyper aggressive and basically constantly sprinting. So on like shotgun classes, for instance, or some of my SMG classes where I'm trying to be super aggressive. So finally, this just leaves us with one last laser attachment, and this is the TAC Laser. With this one, we actually get 3 upsides, but also another downside. And let's first talk about that downside. Once again, the downside is the laser is visible to enemies. However, it's a completely different interaction with the TAC Laser. With this one, your laser is only activated while aiming down sight. So it's kind of the opposite as with the 5mm laser. So if you're ever worried about enemies potentially seeing your laser, just don't aim down sight. Personally, I find this to be a lot easier to control, like when you're actually exposing yourself with the laser, since you actively have to aim down sight to activate it, whereas with the 5mm, that's always on unless you're aiming down sight. In either case, let's get into the pros. The first pro with the TAC Laser is it improves your aim down sight speed, and it turns out this is the same across the board based on all my testing. It will improve your aim down sight speed by roughly 15%. Again, this is a rough number, so give or take a little bit, but right around 15%, which is absolutely very noticeable, especially on guns that already aim down sight fairly slow. So like sniper rifles and LMGs, for instance, this is an excellent attachment for reducing your aim down sight time. When it comes to something like SMGs though, 15% of a really small number already is kind of harder to notice, and therefore it's less useful in my opinion on those guns. So that's the main benefit of using the TAC Laser, at least in my opinion, although the next one is it improves your aiming stability. So this is how much your gun is going to move around while aiming down sight. And just looking at a side-by-side comparison here, on the left is without TAC Laser, on the right is with the TAC Laser. And I used an SMG specifically because SMGs tend to have less aiming stability in the first place. And you can definitely tell there is a slight improvement to your aiming stability with the TAC Laser on. However, it's not like it completely eliminates it by any means. I would consider this to be a pretty slight change to your aiming stability. As for the final upside to using the TAC Laser, this one does go hand in hand with the last one. This is your aim walking stability. So it's sort of the same idea how much your sights are moving, but this time while aiming down sight and walking. And once again, having a look at side by side, on the left is without TAC Laser, on the right is with TAC Laser. And again, it's a similar story. There is absolutely a slight improvement to the stability of your weapon while aiming down sight and strafing. However, it's not like it completely eliminates it or anything. It's just a slight improvement in this area. So overall with the TAC Laser, the primary benefit is absolutely going to be your aim down sight time, and it's a decent boost to your aim down sight time. You just have to always be aware that if you are aiming down sight, the enemies can see that laser. But with that, that pretty much covers it for all of the laser sight attachments that we have in Modern Warfare, and in my opinion, the 1mW laser is a great universal attachment if you just happen to have that extra slot available for an attachment and you don't want to make your weapon any worse, because it's got no downsides, only upsides. Having said that, if you're trying to get a little bit more specialized with your class setup, if you're being hyper aggressive, the 5mW laser is a great choice. Otherwise, I probably would stay away from it because you're just going to be giving away your position way too easy. And finally, with the TAC Laser, this one is best suited to guns that have a very slow aim down sight time. So LMGs and sniper rifles, and even some of the assault rifles like the SCAR for instance. This would be a great choice just to help snap onto target a little bit more effectively. But of course, with this one, you do have to be very cautious about where you're pre-aiming because that laser is going to be visible while doing this. Now, of course, I'd like to know in the comment section below, first off, did any of these results surprise you? Were you unaware of the laser interaction, for instance, with the 5mW or the TAC Laser? And also, what are your thoughts on the laser attachments? Do you like using them on your guns, or do you typically stay away from them? Just let me know those thoughts in the comment section down below. Also, if you guys are interested in any of the other attachment breakdowns, I will leave those linked down below because I have covered quite a few of them, and I have been seeing a lot of questions pop up about certain attachments that I've already covered, so make sure you check those out if you haven't already. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.